So Philadelphia is the poorest large city in the country, in a state which is the worst in the nation when it comes to the funding gap between the poorest and wealthiest school districts. And those two things, poverty and inequality for our youngest residents here in the city of Philadelphia, is what defines us. It's what we're going to be defined by, and we have to change that. Clearly, funding is a major issue. It means that our school buildings are 70 years old and that they're toxic. We don't have air conditioning in most of our schools in the middle of late summer or early summer when temperatures can get up to 90 degrees. We have lead paint that pours down upon our kids' heads, exposed asbestos and lead in our drinking water. So there's a lot that needs to be done to ensure that our schools come up to the standards that are even acceptable or safe. And that's some of the things that we've been driving on, that it's not enough for us to make changes around governance. We were successful in ending a 20-year state takeover, but we have to prove that local governance means that children's education changes in the classrooms and for the teachers who teach in them. Pennsylvania, inexplicably, is one of the worst states in the nation. It's at $7.25 an hour, the absolute federal minimum. It's the lowest wage of all surrounding states around us. And for tipped workers, it's even worse. It's $2.83 an hour. It's an absolute disgrace. It promotes poverty. Last year, more than 300,000 Philadelphians reported going hungry or being food insecure, and 80% of them have jobs. So clearly, we need to do something about the conditions, not just poverty in the sense that people are poor, but that there are conditions that allow giant corporate entities to not only perpetuate poverty, but to profit from it. And that's what we're going for. That's why we passed a Fair Work Week law here in the city of Philadelphia that demanded that we could establish stable schedules. We're working against preemption, which is a big issue not only here in Pennsylvania, but all across the country. So we've got to be unique and creative. That's why we're looking to expand labor rights for the new and modern economy. We're looking to our domestic workers and to other gig workers who are seeking to expand their organizing rights and working together to build a real union and establish some meaningful civil and human rights protections. We're going to be devoted to building unions, supporting unions, and unionizing as many different organizations, private businesses. We're coming for you. Housing has been one of the central issues of our city. On any given night, 6,000 people seek shelter in our city. It's more than just being a symptom of poverty, it's something that actually perpetuates it. It means that likely people can't hold on to jobs. They're not likely to find better housing, for example, if they're evicted from a house. Their children have to switch public schools and they struggle for stability in their lives. We're trying to figure it out. We've got Ben Carson in the White House at HUD. And so cities like ours are having to pick up the pieces. We're not going to be able to do it alone, which means that this presidential race around housing and how housing needs to be centered within the presidential dialogue is an extremely important issue for us. But here at home, we're looking to expand tenant protections. We have not traditionally done this in a city that is almost 50% renter. We established a right to counsel, or we established a legal defense fund for renters facing eviction, and we're making sure that we'll seek to pass right to counsel by the end of this year. We're exploring rent control. We have to. In a city in which rent far exceeds people's means. We're looking at things like that. And we're going to be piloting housing subsidies for our lowest income residents. But the reality is that our city can't do enough around housing. We need the federal government to be involved. We need unique and creative and aggressive aspects. We need to rein in developers who feel like the city is their playground and are treating it like such. And we've got to make sure that our public resources go to those who are most in need. Public housing, housing is a human right. And we deserve it here in the city of Philadelphia for every child, for every family member, and for every working family. My advice to my teenage self would be to take everything in, to learn that the alienation and isolation that I felt as an immigrant, as a daughter of immigrants growing up, feeling alienated from language and culture, that those would ultimately become our strengths. And that it will take time to learn that. It will take other people around you to remember to raise yourself up. And that when we do tap into the power within ourselves and within our own communities, then everything becomes possible.